Hey, Rebel Bankers, this is your host, Chris Naugle, and welcome to another edition of the Real Estate Money School. I have a really special guest with us tonight, one that's going to drop some unbelievable value to all of you in a topic that you all must know. His name's Brian Trippe from REI Live, and I'm going to have him tell his story in a little bit, but I also want him to talk a little bit about his humble beginnings, some of the things he had to overcome in the beginning to get where he's at today, and that's what we're going to cover in just a second. But I want to talk to you guys about you getting started on your journey to becoming a rebel banker. You see, money is that one thing that everybody looks at and says, when I have more money, when this happens, I'll enter real estate when I get some money. But the biggest thing that everybody needs to understand is that money is just a tool. And the thing that everybody needs to start realizing is it's not about how much money you have. It's about how resourceful you can be. So I want you all to get started on your journey to becoming a rebel banker. And the best way to start that is grab a copy of my book, The Private Money Guide. Check us out online, and you can check out my webpage, chrisnaugle.com. That's Naugle, and we'll be able to help you get on your journey and overcome the biggest barrier in most people's lives of money. But let's get right into this. I want to talk about Brian, and I want Brian to kind of tell you what he does. And Brian, if you could, thank you so much for being on the show first off, but then if you could tell my audience a little bit about where you are today, and then let's dive a little bit into how you got there. So
for sure,
welcome,
Chris. Thank you very much. First, I want to just thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm honored to be here, and I'm here to provide value to your audience, and hopefully we can make that happen. So what am I up to today? Today, I run the largest real estate investor club in the state of Alabama. We call it REI Live, Real Estate Investing Live, right here in Birmingham. And my whole goal, and I know we were talking offline, Chris, that once you get to a certain point, I feel like real estate deals are really awesome. It's really cool. But now we start to think about impact. Mm-hmm. How can we make true impact in the world, in my little, town right here in Birmingham? And so I just started a meetup group probably 2.5 almost 3 years, actually 3 years ago. Yeah. Started a meetup group, and it's just grown into something just enormous. We don't try to, nickel and dime everybody for every little thing. We don't even bring in selling speakers. We just want to provide tremendous value to our members that come every single month. And we're just, that's all I do. That's all I do today is I teach, I coach people how to do real estate. And you were talking about it earlier. We teach people how to give money. We were talking about wholesaling offline, all these different strategies, but it all does come back to money a little bit. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about money.
Oh, I hope so. I always like talking about that. But one of the things that you are the master at is you're the master of networking. And if people want money, if people want deals, if people want more income, they got to learn how to network. That's where it begins, and that's where it ends, because your network equals your net worth. We all know that. You are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So Brian, tell us a little bit about networking and how you've become a master in this, and how specifically you can provide some value to this audience, the Real Estate Money School's audience, on networking.
For sure. Well, I hope everyone didn't just fall asleep when you said everybody we're going to be talking about networking. So don't fall asleep. Just stay with me here for just a couple of minutes. I'm of the belief, Chris, that most people do not know how to network. Okay. When one of my coaching students came up to me about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and said, Brian, I hate to network. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, I hate asking people for things. And I was just like, whoa. I can't believe it. She's got it all wrong. That's not what networking is. And I felt like I had to start teaching it. And, we obviously put on these events, and, you'd look around at the crowd. I know you have events too that you put on. You look around 20 minutes, 30 minutes before the event's supposed to start. And what do you see, Chris? Half the people there are sitting down.
Yeah.
No one is talking to anyone, right? So I've just kind of developed my keys to networking. I think that they're really super simple, but they're also they can be powerful if you utilize them. The very first thing is, don't think of it as if you're trying to ask people for things. It's provide value. That's number one. Is lead with value. Well, that's not number one. I kind of jumped ahead of myself. But you do want to lead with value. But the only way you can lead with value is you first have to You have to listen, and you have to like actually talk to someone and maybe ask them some specific questions like, what kind of challenges are you going through today? Or what kind of challenges are you going through in your business? And be a listener and understand who they are and what they're about. And then if you can, lead with value. And a lot of times value, and this is number 3, a lot of times value is just a connection. Be a connector. If you know someone has a need and you can fulfill that need, or you know someone who can fulfill that need, make the connection. And when you make that connection, guess what you're automatically seen as? You're seen as the guy who can get stuff done. They want to keep coming back to you, ask you questions, and they want to learn more from you. And Zig Ziglar said it best. I'm going old school quoting Zig Ziglar. If you can give enough people what they're looking for, then you'll get everything that you're looking for. But you got to lead with giving them everything that they're looking for first. So it's the law of reciprocity. Lead with value first, and it's all going to come back to you in the end.
You know, it's so funny. And I know we're talking networking now, but networking ties back to money perfectly. We're constantly telling people the biggest mistake a lot of new investors make is they go out there, they need money, and what do? They ask for money. Once you ask for money, you put yourself in a position of powerless. You have no power left when you do that. If you just focused on doing one thing different there, like you're talking about, and you focused on people's problems and how you can solve them, creating an opportunity for someone else's problem. And with money, it's easy because you know what everybody's problem is? They all want to make more money. So if you know how to present an opportunity to solve someone's problem of making more money, that's easy. So if you go into a networking situation like you were talking about, go in with the intent of showing people how to solve their problem of making more money, making more passive income, becoming the bank. It's so easy to do. And you can do it through networking like you're saying. I love that. If you give, you get.
100%. It's old school. It's biblical.
Doesn't matter if it's old school. It's the principle that matters.
But the old school stuff ends up getting like drowned out by our new society because so many things change, right? The packaging changes. But we got to go back to the old school principles. You got to give. You know, if you can help enough other people get what they want, you're going to get everything in the world you could ever even want or desire. And even God says it in his word that the floodgates will open up. And when we talk about tithing, you're going to give first. You're going to lead with giving. Everything's going to come back to you anyway. And it's okay. And I want to throw this in, Chris. Mm-hmm. It's okay to do this selfishly in the beginning. It's okay to like, well, you know what? Brian said this, I'm going to give it a try. And I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it only because I want the benefit of it. And I think it's okay in the beginning to do that. Just like I think it's okay for if you don't have anything, you came from, maybe little means, it's okay to go after the money in the beginning too. I think it's okay to be in real estate just for the money. I think that that's okay as long as we're honest with ourselves. Obviously, that can't sustain itself. You're going to have to find a new why or passion or reason why you're doing this. But in the beginning, it's okay to be selfish. It's okay to lead with value for selfish reasons, I should say.
I think you're absolutely correct there. 100% correct there. And networking is just such you have a book. Do you have a copy of your book? Just show the audience this. Everybody that's watching this right now needs to read this book, because if you don't understand, even if you think you understand networking, you probably don't. You got to grab a copy of that book. And we're going to go over that at the end of the podcast. But Brian, real quick, a lot of times when we do this, like we're talking about networking, we're talking about REI Live, but let's take a trip back in time here. Let's talk a little bit about your humble beginnings, how you got started, because you've got quite the story. You're talking about networking and giving, but you know what? You're a rock star when it comes to real estate. Like, tell them about some of your journey when your first couple deals. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so thank you, Chris. I got my start, I think like most other people, I heard an ad on the radio. Actually, I don't know. I don't want to talk about, I'm not going to talk good or bad about who, but I am going to mention names. I can say good things and bad things, but I heard an ad on the radio and I genuinely believed that Robert Kiyosaki was coming to Birmingham to speak. And I wanted to go hear him speak because I'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think Rich Dad Poor Dad is one of the foundational books we all need to read as real estate investors. I heard an ad on the radio. They got me hook, line, and sinker. I ended up buying a program. I didn't really know what I was doing. I think that a lot of us are like that. And I think that that's okay. Well, what's not okay, or where I guess the line is drawn very clearly, is once you do all that and the emotion kind of wears off, where are you? Are you going to go take action? Or are you going to let that stuff sit there? And I was a person where I didn't even have the money that I spent on this stuff. I didn't even have that money. So my back, I just gotten married. My back was up against the wall, I felt like, and I just had to make this thing work. I went out 45 days later and did my very first deal. It was a wholesale deal, made $10,000. And I'm going to tell you something. It completely changed my entire life. And not because $10,000 is some incredible sum of money. And it is the sum. And to me, in that moment it was. Today I wouldn't so much say that, but that what that did for me, Chris, was it changed my mindset. It changed my thinking. It changed my belief. I never thought I could be successful. I never thought I could do anything of success. I was a guy that on the day of my high school graduation, everyone was asking me, hey, what are you going to do next? And I said, I don't know. I'm probably going to go to college or something. I'm sure I can get a student loan or something. I'm probably going to go to college. Graduated high school with like a 1.7 GPA, by the way. And my dad looked at me right in my eyes and said, why are you going to go to college? You're just going to flunk out. And so like I faced that. That was like my life growing up until really I was 30. I was the kid. I got married at 30, but before that, I was sitting in the basement playing video games till 4 a.m. I didn't really have any purpose, any drive, any ambition. I just didn't know. I wasn't taught. I didn't understand. So finally, just one day, going to that class and learning just some basic stuff, I'm just like, I'm fed up. I'm kind of sick and tired of being sick and tired. My back's up against the wall. And what I've learned, Chris, is that people just don't change. Like change is probably the single hardest thing in the entire universe to try to do. People just don't change. Something significant, incredibly significant, has to happen to you in order for you to change. And I felt like that happened to me. My wife called me bawling her eyes out and said she wanted to quit her job. I was a Division I college basketball coach making peanuts, literally. And she called me bawling her eyes out and said she wants to quit her job, and she made all the money. I'm like, you can't. But she wants to quit her job, so I got to make this real estate thing real, right? I got to actually go out and do it. And my back was up against the wall. Did my first deal in 45 days, made $10,000. And from there, I went on and built $1 million wholesaling business. I have over 70 rentals today. I'm still doing a lot of real estate with tax liens and tax deeds, a lot of owner financing today. So anybody can do this. I am nobody special at all. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, had the right circumstances that made me want to break out and change my life and change my life's direction. And I think any of us can do that.
What's so funny, and I do this podcast with all sorts of people. I mean, just the stories in the journey that most people I speak to, people that are at the top of the game like yourself, Brian, our journeys are all the same. If I had an hour to do this, I would talk about my story and you would be like, there's no way, because it's just like yours. It was just like yours, except for it didn't include Robert. It included a different company, but my journey was so much like yours, and so many of the other speakers' journey is exactly the same, because we all need that moment of truth where we have to make a decision to leap. You made that decision, and everybody has to make that decision. And that decision is not going to ever be easy. And there are going to be things that are going to happen. People are going to fail. You can't succeed without failing. Every failure is one step closer to success. That's the story of life. That's the story of every successful person I've ever met. And I bet you can say the same thing, right, Brian?
No doubt about it.
Everyone. And every no puts you one step closer to a yes. So with that being said, Brian, tell me a little bit about let's talk about your internal obstacles in that journey of getting up to be a multi-million-dollar company and having everything that you do today. What was one internal obstacle you had to overcome in this journey?
It was inside my head. And, I used to always say that networking is the single most important thing in real estate. And I've really changed that mantra completely. It's really mindset. Mindset is probably 90% of it. And then networking might be the next 9%. The actual strategies and how to, that's the easy stuff, super easy stuff. It's literally changing your mind to think positively. I'm just a pessimistic person by nature. I've always been pessimistic. I've always been negative about everything. And you start reading some books, getting around people you were talking about earlier, like getting around, you are a summation of the 5 people you hang out with the most. That's totally true. I think Jim Rohn said that first. It's totally true. But learning from people like Eckhart Tolle, who wrote a book called The Power of Now. It's there's no such thing as yesterday. There's no such thing as tomorrow. There's no such thing as 1 minute from now. The only thing that exists is right now. That's the only thing that exists. And if you can actually wrap your mind around that, the only thing that exists is right now, that's mind-blowing for most people, that because they're always either living in the past about how I wish it was this, and like with regret, or they're living in the future of someday. Someday it might be this, but we don't have neither one of those exists. So just something simple like that, complaining. Oh my gosh, I used to be the biggest complainer, and I still complain. It's still a little bit of a bad habit.
We're all going to do it.
But complaining, Eckhart Tolle says complaining is just non-acceptance of what is. And it's just like when you actually start to get around people like that, read great books from great authors and great people. I mean, mindset it's all, for me, it was everything for me, just because of how I grew up. And I was always told that I would never amount to anything, and just believing that I can amount to something. I am somebody. I do have value. I do have worth, and I am going to mess up, and I am going to fail. And that's okay, because we just need to fail forward, right? We just need to not quit, just fail forward. So it's all mindset for me. The obstacles were all mindset for
that
me.
Book, Eckhart Tolle's book, changed my life. I never talk about it from stage. I never bring it up. And I haven't found a way to really explain to people that profound effect that book had. But for those of you that are just listening to this podcast, you don't have the visuals, but I'm wearing a watch right now that says now. That's the only time this watch has on it. It doesn't tell the time, because it doesn't matter what time it is. The time is always right now. That is the only time. And it's just profound that you just said that, Brian. But you know what's so strange about that? It's every single person I bring on this podcast. Every successful person says things to what you just said. And you know what that all just leads. We're all bound by the same thing. And it's just a journey, and we all got to find our way through that. And it all begins with right now. So that was your internal obstacle. And that was beautiful, by the way. That was just awesome. What about external obstacles? I mean, did you struggle with money? Did you have any external obstacle that stopped you or slowed you down, or that you had to struggle with? You mentioned when you first did that, I call it my magic swipe, but check or swipe, that magic swipe where you spend that money on that leap of faith and you don't have it. I mean, what was your biggest external obstacle? I really don't know. I mean, I made a couple of like bad mistakes, bad investments, like when I actually got some money and just did some things I shouldn't have done with. I was the kind of person that I just put my head down. I wasn't, and today you see a lot of people out there that might have done one deal or two deals or three deals, and now they're in all these forums and all these Facebook groups, and they're talking about how they're the expert because they've done this one deal, or now they're a guru and they're coaching people and they've done like one or two or three deals. And I was the guy who for about 3 full years, no one ever heard from me. Like I would go to some meetup groups and some RIA meetings every once in a while, and I'd hear like crazy things from people like, man, a lot of people are talking about you. Like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, your bandit signs are everywhere. You've like covered our city. I had these red, I actually got one in the corner over there. I have these red bandit signs with white type, and it's just red is just so bold. It just sticks out, and they're everywhere. It's like everybody's talking about you, and you obviously are doing a lot of deals because you're everywhere. And I'm just like, I'm oblivious to it all, because I was that guy that just put my head down and I just went to work. If the external obstacles, the thing that I'm still not good at today, and just because I've never allowed it, I always put a cap on what I feel like, whatever. I have like 7 companies right now. I put a cap on what they can earn. And I basically do that because I know that I am not any good at taking it beyond that level. And if I do have to take it beyond that level, then I got to get more involved to make that happen. And I don't want to spend the time doing that. So that's my biggest obstacle, was dealing with people in the beginning, hiring, making sure I had the right people. I hired, the very first hire I ever made was on commission only. And it was one of my good friends, and we haven't talked since. And and that was like 2014. And we haven't talked since. And not that he's mad at me or I'm mad at him. It's just we've gone completely opposite directions. I mismanaged. I didn't know how to manage him. And I made a lot of mistakes. I brought on some other people. And right now it's me and a virtual assistant. And I have an acquisitions guy that's been with me for like 3 years.
That's awesome. That's our core real estate business. But right now, like I said, my main focus is going to be the RIA, the Real Estate Investor Club, coaching my coaching students. I'm a control freak. That's going to be my biggest obstacle today. And I just can't let go.
All right. That's a good external obstacle, and that's a unique one. That's very unique to you. So during this journey, and I'm going to take you from that point where your wife said, I want to quit my job. And you're like, whoa, you bringing in, you're the breadwinner. You're bringing the money in. At that moment, you made a decision and you took things seriously and you put your head down, as you've said. How did you improve and transform as a person at that moment and moving forward?
It became real. The whole like adult, I'm just being honest with you. I feel like I'm being pretty transparent right now. Like giving you some really deep internal stuff right now. Like that was the moment where I could probably pinpoint and say that's where I truly became an adult, to be honest, at 32 years old. And she was a pharmacist. And if you know anything about pharmacists, they make pretty dang good money.
Sure do.
And she wanted to quit her job. And we'd been married at that point for 2 years. I went back to school. I got my master's degree. I was coaching Division I college basketball, exactly what I wanted to do. I was at the very bottom of the totem pole. My goal is I was going to work my way up, and it's going to take me 10, 15 years to finally make some decent money. And that was we were okay with that. I was going to do that. And it was that moment where I had to it was in the middle of the basketball season. It was January. It was in the middle of January 2013 when that phone call happened. And I had a choice to make. Do I want to have a family and let my wife quit her job and, bring her home and let her, raise our kids, which we didn't even have any kids at the time. But do I want that? Or do I want to keep chasing this basketball thing? And who knows, 5 years from now, we may not have kids, 10 years, and she's going to be miserable. And we talked about it, and she wanted to quit her job. Thankfully, she hung on for a few more years while I got the real estate thing really going. And she quit her job in December of 2016 when we had our second kid, and she hasn't been back to work since. So, whoops.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's just, for me, that like, I'd never thought that I could be that. I never thought that I could have that level, even that level of success. Right. But to give her that was like my only goal. Was the only thing I saw every single day. It was my why, right? Is the why I got up every day, is so she could quit her job. I want to replace her income, her really big income, by the way, with passive income, with our rentals. And I did that. And it's one of the greatest achievements I've probably ever had in my entire life.
The thing you can't see that I can, because I can see your face, you should see the way your face transformed when you said what you just said. That was awesome. Like you could just see like that overwhelming sense of just, I did it. And that's awesome. I love that, man. That's great. So with that being said, we're getting to the end here, and this has been awesome. I mean, there's just so many parallels, so many similar things that are going on here. But again, back to networking, let's just give them like just a real quick summary of is there one takeaway you can give my audience just about networking that you think would be a golden nugget that they can take and apply immediately?
Yeah, just figure out your unique ability. Figure out what your unique ability is, and especially if you're new. When we're new, a lot of times we feel like we don't have anything to offer, because I said lead with value. What if you're talking to a cash buyer who is flipping 100 houses a year, right? Like you're talking to like the man of the man, and you feel like you don't have anything of value to offer this person. Well, we all have a unique ability, and can I tell? Do we have like 2 or 3 minutes for me?
Listen, Brian, do it, man. Go with it.
I'm going to tell a quick story. So when I first launched the RIA, I knew, and this was like for real, I launched it in January 2017. I was doing a meetup group, and we officially launched it in January 2017. And I knew in order to launch this thing successfully, I had to get not only new people, but I had to get like the old guard on board with it. I had to get like the older guys, established guys that were they had to buy into me, and they had to show up, because if they show up, they're the ones with influence. If they show up, everyone else is going to show up. So, and who's me? Who am I? Like I was doing a lot of real estate, but I didn't have a lot of outward influence, because like I said earlier, I just kept my head down. I wasn't really out. I didn't put myself out there. So I wanted to start this thing. I wanted to get more into teaching and coaching, because that's my background. It's what I love to do. And I knew I had to get those guys on board. And what I did something very specific. I went to one guy who was probably the most influential in our entire area. And he had I recognized what a need was that he had. So I hope you're following along with the story. Picture yourself in my shoes. What could you do if you're talking to this guy? I studied him. I figured out what he needed. And I approached him and I said, listen, from afar, it looks like to me that you're doing a lot of great things, but I think your business could take it could even go to the next level if you had somebody like doing some marketing and branding for you. Have you ever thought about something like that? And so I just happen to be a marketing guy, happen to be good with video, making videos and stuff like that. So I'm like, well, here's my idea. If you will come to our RIA, we want you to come to we're going to launch this thing in January. We want you to come to it and be a part of it. If you come to our RIA, I'll follow you around with a camera. I'll record you and I'll put out like a big mini series on you, branding you as like the guy in our area. And he was, don't get me wrong. Like this guy was already doing massive volume. He was already like a really big dude, but I knew he didn't really have an online presence like he should have. So I followed him around for like a half a day. I split it up into like a 7-part series, put it on Facebook. And for our area, this thing went absolutely viral. All the realtors saw it. All the wholesalers saw it. Everybody saw it. And this dude, at the end of 2017, he did more than he'd ever done before. And he told me at the very end of the year that, look, he was going to do big volume with me, with or without me. But he noticed a very significant like increase in connections, people calling him, realtors wanting to reach out to him with deals. So I provided massive value to this guy, not expecting anything back in return. I found my unique ability and was able to get him on board. To this day, he is a part of our group. We have a local mastermind group that he helps me lead. Like he is a part of our organization, and it's all because I reached out to him and I provided him with value. I gave him value, led with value. And here's the key. And you asked me for an actionable thing. One is find your unique ability and offer it. Number 2 is do not expect anything back in return. Just do it without the expectation, and it's going to come back to you.
That's awesome. That's a golden nugget, everybody. And you guys need to take note and write that down, because that right there will it will blow your business up. It will blow you up, and it will just altogether make you just a better person. You'll start unlocking some of the secrets that the wealthy use, that Brian's using, that we're using. I mean, the secrets are right under your nose. They really are. And he just told one of the biggest ones. He provided massive value with not one hope of getting anything in return, and he got everything in return. That's the way it works. So that was a great story. I love it. Thank you so much for delivering that. And I hope everybody watching this podcast is getting massive value out of this, because I want you all to get at least something that you can take and you can take action on and do what we like to call lead. So thank you all for joining us. Brian, thank you for your time. If anyone wants to find you, like, how do they go about doing that? I mean, how does someone participate in REI Live and what you're doing? I mean, tell them, how do they find you?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for this opportunity. And can I give something away to your audience? Do you mind if I do that?
Who doesn't want something for free? Yeah.
So right now I'm really trying to build my Instagram following. All right. So I would love for you guys, if you follow me on Instagram, my name is Brian J. Trippe on Instagram. It's at Brian, Brian, the letter J, Trippe. If you follow me on Instagram and shoot me a DM, I will send you a copy of my book that came out last year called Nothing's for Sale. I got another book coming out at the end of in 2020 on networking. This one's called Nothing's for Sale. If you DM me, I will send you a copy. I'm not going to send you through some slimy, scammy, free plus shipping model. I'm going to pay for the shipping. I'm going to do it all. Just DM me and at Brian J. Trippe, and I will send you a copy of my book.
That's awesome, Brian. I'm literally, I got my phone. I'm doing it right now. Send me a copy of the book. I'm in. There we go. Your first DM, and I hope there's a whole bunch more to follow. So awesome. Thank you for that. And this has been amazing. It's been fantastic, not only for myself, for my audience, but everybody's going to walk away motivated and inspired by what you just said. And all of them need to go out there and take some action. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart. And for all of you listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, it's time for you to start taking some action. It's time for you to get on your journey to becoming a rebel banker. And to do that, all you need to do is seek knowledge. Knowledge starts in a lot of ways, but start with a copy of the book, The Private Money Guide. Grab a copy of Brian's book. He just gave it away for free. And check us both out online. You can check me out online at chrisnaugle.com, or you can check us out at themoneymultiplier.com to learn all about some of the things we've got going on. So thank you all for joining us for another edition of the Real Estate Money School, and I'll see everybody on the next episode. Thank you and have a good day.